I don't remember that. I really only remember the fighting. If you want to wait, if your marriage needs a lot more fights, a lot more conflict, do a paper route together. It is terrible.
Yeah, I think
at least for us.
A couple months into that.
Welcome to We Do Whatever It Takes, a marriage podcast with a magician and an almost therapist, where you get tips and tricks for creating a great marriage.
Welcome to another episode of We Do Whatever It Takes. This is a podcast about how to help your marriage to just be thriving and really doing whatever it takes to create a great marriage. And so I'm Danny Ray.
And I'm Kimberly.
And I'm a professional magician and a pastor. So go ahead and think about that for a second. And then
I am working towards my license as a marriage and family therapist.
Wow. So you're like an almost therapist.
Almost therapist.
So a magician and an almost therapist. I love it.
And today we're talking about tricks to becoming wise with our finances.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Can you give me some money?
And by no means are we perfect in this area, or any area for that matter. But we want to share with you some of the tips and tricks that we've learned along the way in 26 years of marriage.
Yeah, so in 26 years, I would say 13 of those were scrambling financially, trying to figure it out, living week to week, and really not having any type of plan for where our money goes. And then I think, like a lot of people, we listened to Dave Ramsey, watched a couple of his some of his videos and read some of his books and went, oh, we could actually be in control of our finances. And so by God's grace, we're debt free and we just have a new outlook and we've created solutions that work for us. And we're hoping to pass on some of those strategies to you.
See if they help you out. So when it comes to money, you have to be on the same page. Otherwise, arguments, frustration, and I'm sure we don't need to tell you about that because that's something we can all do naturally.
In the top 3 of marriage fights is over money.
Yeah.
And we've seen it over and over again with couples. It could create a lot of stress, a lot of tension in the relationship.
And it did for us, for sure.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. We had lots of arguments over money early on. Yeah. I would say that's much less now, even though it does happen. Yeah. But mainly because we're by God's grace, it really is that we're in control of those finances now.
Instead of it controlling us.
Yeah, and so we would spend every dollar early on and there's a lot that went into that. I don't know how much we'll get into today with that, but there's a lot that we've learned with the financial end.
Well, and when we started out, I mean, you weren't sure how far back we're going, but I'm going to go that
all
far
the way
back.
to the beginning. Wow,
the beginning, 26 years ago when we started out, we got married right after college, and we literally had $1,000 total.
Woo!
And moved across, well, not across the country, but moved to Colorado. So out of state where we knew nobody and didn't have jobs lined up.
What were we thinking?
You had seminary lined up. So we did have that. We had a reason for going there. But with only $1,000, that didn't go far even back then. We lived on mac and cheese. There was, 4 for $1 back then. And
4 for $1 mac and cheese. Oh, we also had
we lived in a dorm. Yeah.
That we put next to each other, but they were both sunken in so much that we literally couldn't see each other without lifting up our head and looking over. Hey, babe, there you are.
Yeah. Not ideal situation, but that's okay. We were young and no back problems at the time. So
figuring those things out.
That's right. So finances, we really didn't have a clue. And we did fall into the trap of credit cards. And
well, early on with the credit cards is we were paying it off.
True.
It's that whole idea of it'll never happen to me. This, I'm not going to have any problems.
We'll pay it off at the end of every month.
Yeah.
And we did for a while.
And we did till 2008.
Yeah, the recession hit, and I'm sure, hurt a lot more people than just us. But that was definitely for our ministry. We invested a bunch, and with the turning of the economy, it did not go well.
Yeah, we were doing the whole double points and extra airline miles and get this. And, we had, credit cards for Target, for Kohl's, for.
I don't know if we had all of those, but.
You had some. I was like, what? Where's that?
Yeah,
you were like, ooh, I get 1% off them all. 1%. No,
Oh,
it was like 5% or something.
Stop.
But it all caught up with us in
did.
2008 as the recession hit and people couldn't afford to bring me out. For those of you who don't know, I travel almost every week into different states doing different events where I'll do a show with a message. And, sometimes I'm brought in as a keynote speaker. Other times it's more the entertainment side.
Right.
And, a lot of that came not to a halt, but it slowed down or people just didn't have the finances to bring us in. And so all of a sudden we're having to pay the minimum payment, which never goes well on a credit card. And
they are set up to win at that game, and we're set up to lose.
And it was definitely a lose-lose for our marriage. It caused a lot of tension, a lot of fights, and we're trying to figure out how do we navigate this? How do we get out?
One of the worst things that we navigated was we took a job doing throwing the paper route. Yeah.
Oh,
that was terrible. That was to earn money to pay off debt, and that was brutal.
That was brutal. Getting up at 2:00 in the morning and getting down to the place to fold the papers at 3:00 and then get out of there by 3:30
in the morning.
Which
I don't do well
The
at
best
all.
part about that, though, was on the drive down the hill, we would stop at the donut place and we'd get fresh donuts, hot. Those were pretty epic.
I don't remember that. I really only remember the fighting. If you want to if your marriage needs a lot more fights, a lot more conflict, do a paper route together. It is terrible.
Yeah, I think
at least for us.
A couple months into that, you quit, and I was like, "What? You can't quit." You're like, "You're throwing papers on your own."
We were about to be fired anyway. I'm really sure of that. So yes, I did bail on you. Sorry about that. But
But that's one of those areas where it was like, we'll do whatever it takes to get out of debt. And so it was a 2-year process for us. I know for some of you, 2 years feels like nothing, but for us, that was a long stretch of going, you know what, this is not where we want our marriage to be. We need to figure out how to get a handle on our finances. It was at that time that we heard of this wonderful thing called budgeting.
Okay, in all fairness, I had heard about it my whole life growing up.
But we started to develop a budget. But here's one of the key things that we learned with every book we read, every video, every person we talked to. It didn't work for us doing this thing called a monthly budget.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working because our finances were so up and down on any given week.
Right.
With events coming in, sometimes it pays really well, sometimes it doesn't. And so what worked for us was creating a weekly budget.
That was a game changer for us. Yeah. So if your finances are erratic and you're using the excuse like we did that, we can't do a budget or it's too hard because of the monthly, we really have been able to control our finances in doing a weekly budget rather than the finances controlling us, for sure.
Yeah, one of the keys with that is talking about those things together. I know for some of you out there, you're like, well, my husband does that or my wife does that. But it's really a game changer when you come together to talk about the finances and say, hey, I've noticed this, and not to discourage the other person, but how do you come alongside to be a source of encouragement, to be part of the solution, and trying to figure out things together to make things right on the financial front.
Yeah, because we took turns failing at it. So when we first got married, well, there was a thing called a checkbook.
What is a checkbook? Wow.
And you had to balance that. And I definitely did not do great at that, even though I thought I would. And so it was like, well, fine, here, you take it back, or you take it over. And then you made a mistake with it. And it was like, all right, neither of us are really great at this. So we've got to find a way to make this work.
Yeah, so you ran the finances for a while and we were still kind of living month to month. when I took it over and we started budgeting and doing
Which that wasn't until what year? When you really took it over, what, you think that's been 10 years now?
Maybe.
Yeah.
2012-ish, probably.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the game changer for us. Is at that point I had read several books on financing, on planning, on automating your bills. And that's like, here's a really practical strategy that we're teaching to our kids, that we've implemented, that we've talked to some other people about, is automating your bills. For some of you, that's a no-brainer. You're already doing it. But if you're not automating stuff, it really helped us to go like, okay, this money is going to automatically come out at this time. So let's make sure we have the money in there. And then we didn't have to worry about, okay, is this paid? Is this paid? Is this not paid? Is it automatically happening with all of our bills? There's maybe one or two for a variety of reasons that we're not able to automate, but it makes it much simpler when you're dealing with a couple bills that you have to do every month versus every single bill. At least for us, that helped us to put things in the right place.
Well, in addition to bills being automated, we did so savings accounts, various savings accounts are automated too. So X amount goes to, hey, we're going to need a new car at some point, a new used car at some point. And
New to us.
There you go. So it's it automatically comes out, right? And for us on a weekly basis. And
so we
Christmas.
have the Christmas fund that is like that, the education funds like that. The savings account, the car account. So we have several different savings accounts that we automatically fund for us every week. I realize some people do it every month. That just depends on, again, we're not trying to say, here's exactly how to budget, as much as to say the budgeting helps you to have control over your finances versus the finances controlling you. And so we've found that if we want to spend, and I'm just going to throw out $10 for Christmas for all the presents, $10. Instead of trying to figure out how are we going to come up with $10 in December, we try to come out with that in January, and then we put 5 cents aside every week, so it builds up to $10, whatever that would be.
Obviously, you haven't been Christmas shopping in a long time because $10 is not going to do it.
I know what the Christmas is, but I'm just trying to throw out a generic number, right?
Okay.
But the key is in January, we're saving every week to build up towards that $10, so that in that case, we were actually doing it so that we have that $10 at the beginning of November, so that Kim could
start shopping then.
About the deals that she could find at that time, so that it's not just, well, you have to wait another month before
that wouldn't work.
When we heard the strategy from Dave Ramsey about putting $1,000 aside as an emergency side in cash in our house to have on hand at any time, that was one of those big game changers. It took a little bit to build that up. But if you don't have, and I don't know who's listening, what your financial situation is. Maybe this is no big deal for you. But for us, a dishwasher breaking, it's like, oh, where are we going to come up with $400
no
or $500,
idea.
whatever it is for a dishwasher?
Yeah.
It was just like, we don't know what to do. And that would get put on the credit card. So instead of that, when we had that $1,000, it's enough to take care of 100 small things that break. A pool pump breaks. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? There's a lot of things.
Car breaks down, right?
If a car breaks down, you need new tires. That $1,000 can be used for so many different things. And for us, it became a lot easier to breathe once we had that $1,000. Again, some of these things sound so obvious after doing it for about 10 years now or so. But at the time, it was a big deal for us to create that $1,000. And now using that, we've seen so many purposes for that emergency fund.
For sure. I think for us, it's been a life vest almost, right? Because there was just such pressure when a car broke down or, something broke in the house. And it was like, or you just need new brakes, maintenance, whatever. And I was like, what are we going to do? There was always a sense of panic. And that creates tension in the marriage and the family, all of that. So that's been a really...
have savings accounts for those specifically to go, okay, for a rainy day or for something, that goes wrong, we kind of plan on those things and we don't use the emergency fund as quickly.
Yeah.
But it still happens.
Oh, yeah. And I'm really thankful for that. So in our house, we have a spender and a saver.
How about that? Who would be saving? You guys take a guess. Who's going to be spending? Who, if I canceled her Amazon account?
Oh, please don't even joke about that.
No more Prime for you.
Okay. I got to breathe deeply with that one. Stop.
No more 2-day shipping.
Don't even. You need to stop right now. So anyway, in a lot of marriages, we have somebody who might tend to be more of the spender and somebody who might tend to be more of the saver. We have joked for a long time that you're the dreamer.
Yeah, I've got lots of dreams, ideas, thoughts.
So you tease that I'm the spender, but as the dreamer, that involves spending. So we kind of take turns.
Yeah, but it's spending to make money where you're just spending to like, oh, I need new shoes.
I think I could argue that. But anyway, so yeah, we've joked for a long time that you're the dreamer and I am the
dream crusher.
Dream crusher. I prefer realist, but
wow, that's what you're going to go with, realist?
I am going with realist, yes. And go, you know what? That's a great idea if you had millions to spend on whatever your wild idea is.
You should let the bank be the dream crusher instead of you being the dream crusher.
Well, the bank has been the dream crusher as well, not just me. The bank has said, nope.
That's not happening.
That's not happening. The bank account itself has said, nope, that's not happening.
Even this podcast, it's been a dream of both of ours as we've talked about this. And there's definitely things that we would like to buy to make this even better. But then it's like, no, let's see if anybody out there is interested. And so that's one of the strategies that we've had is I've had, I feel like I come up with 100 ideas a year and we don't need
100 a minute.
Maybe. But we don't need to implement every single one of those. And so that's one of the tips. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur out there, is one of the strategies we use is let's see if anybody cares, right?
Yeah.
And if people care about the idea and it has legs, it gets traction, then let's invest some more money in it instead of just spending a bunch of money and hoping people like it. So
we've done that too.
Yeah,
Spent a bunch of money and hope that people would like it. And that didn't work out either.
Made some mistakes along the way.
But that's okay. That's been part of the learning curve. And part of that, we touched a little bit on Dave Ramsey. One of the strategies that's worked really well for us is the envelope system.
Yeah.
So you said our for us, the weekly budget is broken down, and then it's broken down into actual envelopes that we have at home, and
we fill those with money.
with cash, which might just be, okay, $10 for, I don't know, whatever, for the week. So they're not a whole lot of money. There's not a whole lot that goes into each one necessarily, but over the month, it might build up so that we can pay for gardening supplies or pool supplies, right? It all adds up. So
the key with that is it could seem so archaic to put cash aside. I know for myself, I literally haven't carried cash on me in probably decades. Like I just swipe my card.
And but now it even feels physically dirty. I'm just going to say it. But it's important for us. It works well.
So we've used the cash system, but we've also created systems that work for us using the ATM and then putting money aside for that. Yeah. So we've created kind of a mock between a physical cash system and a digital system that works for us. If you're interested, you could email us at Danny@DannyRayMagic, and I could give you more details at that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
.com.
.com. My favorite envelope is called Kim's Fun Money.
Oh, yeah. Fill that one up. Make her happy.
Yeah, please. Usually it's $5 a week, and I am thrilled with that.
It's more than $5 a week. I know you're trying to. Yes.
Oh, okay.
You spend it like it's water, so it feels like $5
It feels like $5 a week. But it's honestly not a lot, right? Each week that you put in there. It's not like you're putting in 100 a week or something. So, but every little bit.
Are you saying you want more fun money? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, that's not what this is about. But it's really brought a lot of freedom. So back in the day, when I would go spend money, let's say I'd go to Ross and buy a shirt for me, I had this weird thing where I would feel like I had to come home with something for you because that would balance it out, and that would make it, I don't know, somehow justified in my head that, well, I spent money on this, and so if I buy you something too, then it's even. And that's not a great philosophy, first of all. And with this, for the Kim's fun money, and you have yours and kids have theirs. Well, when they were all home, they had theirs, and now they get nothing. No envelopes for them. But with those envelopes, it's such a freedom. So I know that money is already allotted to whatever I want to do with it. And there's no guilt in spending that. And I love that. For me, it's so freeing. And I just go, I can spend it on a Starbucks. I can spend it on stuff at Ross or whatever. So I, really find freedom in the
I will work on upping your. That's what I hear you say.
That is not what I'm saying.
So
we can address that later.
I'm going to address it now. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
So there is a weight, we call it, and this isn't unique to me, but this is the provider's burden. And we're in a situation where we are a one-income family currently, and we have been for 23 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with that, there's a pressure on the provider, that's myself in this situation, to take care of the family, to make sure we have meals on the table, to make sure we're saving, to make sure we're, putting money aside for the kids' colleges, all those type of things. And with that weight, I think it's important to talk to your spouse about that. If you're both most of the couples we know, there's a 2-income family, and there's a weight on both people that they feel that they need to provide different things for the family. And I don't think we talk about that a lot. I think it's hard to address like this desire that you have to take care of your family. And I think it's important for couples to talk about that. If you're in a one income, to maybe recognize that there's a weight that's constantly there, especially if you're dealing with any type of debt. We didn't realize it, but all those proverbs that talk about, that the debtor is
a slave to the lender. Yeah.
And you don't realize it till you're out of debt that, oh, wow, there's been this burden that's on me constantly. And so those are conversations that I would encourage you to have with your spouse, asking questions like, hey, do you ever feel a weight of the finances? Do you ever feel like there would be freedom if we didn't have debt? Or do you feel like it'd be the same? Just to have those conversations with each other. I know you're constantly aware of that, and we kind of keep a pulse on that together.
I would add to that conversation the need for trusting the spouse too, right? So if in our case, we'll take that. So with you bringing in most of the finances and at times all of the finances, then there's some trust involved on the other side of that, right? So you might have this burden of providing for the family, which you very much do. And I understand that and try and acknowledge that. At the same time, I think you acknowledge that there's a trust I have to have in you that it's going to happen. So I think that side of it, if you say that you're going to take care of the finances in the home, you need to do it.
Yeah, the whole follow through, the consistency. The other side of that, though, is I'm very aware of, for those years you've been home, obviously the last 2 years it shifted as you've gone off to school and you're working internships and all those type of things. But at this point, the finances are coming from one source. But you've invested so much in the family and in the back end of the ministry of the business of taking care of that side of it. So it's not like you're not working or investing in both the business as well as in the family. And we just made a choice to do that as a family that you would. And those are conversations you have to figure out what's important to you as a family. And for us, having time with our kids was essential and being able to invest really well in their lives. And so that's one of the things that we made a choice on early on. And now as we're entering into a new season, that'll change.
Yeah, I want to talk about one more game changer for us is called the God Pocket.
Oh yeah, I love the God Pocket. So
Right?
good.
Do you remember where that came
I
from? What
don't.
that's
I know
called?
we were going through a series.
Rooted. It was called Rooted, right?
From
I think
Mariners Church. I
I
don't
think
know
it
if
came from that. No?
I don't think it's unique to them, but
Okay.
it's hard to say. Somebody could look it up and
Yeah,
let
sorry
us know.
if we're not giving
But
credit. We're trying.
Yeah, the God Pocket, essentially, before we started the God Pocket, we would give to different charities, to our church, to different organizations that we believed in, and we still do that and continue to do that. But when we started the God Pocket about maybe 8 years ago,
Yeah.
it was a huge thing for our family. So what we did is we would put aside money every week into an envelope, and then we look for opportunities as a family to give that money to somebody. So sometimes at a grocery store, we would give somebody money to pay for their groceries. Sometimes just somebody on the street. We be in, and we don't have to wonder like, oh, do we have the money to do this? We literally
It's allotted.
have this
Yeah.
money put aside. So I guess the biggest change for us is it's a different mindset when you know you have money on hand to give to people
Yeah.
in situations as you go through your day.
Yeah. And that's had a spiritual component too for the family. So sometimes one of the kids would say, I really think we should give the God Pocket to that person over there. And somebody else would say, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that same person or whatever.
And then even as I remember when the boys went off to college, they call home and say, hey, how much money's in the God Pocket? I have a situation at school that, and so it's just been a unique opportunity for our family to be praying through, like you said, and looking for opportunities to give.
Yeah.
Where prior to the God Pocket, it's not that we didn't look for opportunities, but it wasn't kind of constantly on our mind and knowing that we have the resources to do it.
Yeah. So this is a set aside envelope that really helps to facilitate that.
So our question for you to talk about this week is, what system do you have now? Is it working or is it not? And is there a new way or a new thought, maybe something from this podcast or a book you could pick up that would help you to get a handle on your finances? Because we want to honor God with everything we do. And that's one of the ways we could definitely honor God. Yeah. So we would just challenge you to have that conversation with your spouse and go, what are some ways that we could bless others with the finances, the resources that God's given us?
I'm going to throw this out there. It's kind of coming to mind that I think a really bad scenario would be one spouse trying to control the other with the finances, right? And I know we weren't necessarily headed that direction in this podcast,
finances, but we alluded to it with sex can be a way that you control others.
Yeah.
Finances could be another one of those ways that you control your spouse. And we want to make sure that we're not using this against our spouse. Like for us, the conversation became, I became aware of Kim's, I'm just going to call it guilt, right or wrong, is she felt this guilt in spending money on whatever that was because we didn't have any budget, we didn't have any control, and then it's like, oh, we're not going to be able to pay this bill, where's that money going to come from? So I got, by God's grace, control of the finances and went, okay, we can give fun money to Kim where there's no guilt associated with it, just enjoy what God's given us and spend freely because that's what it's for. And that's how
I don't
we
have
were
to
able to
ask
come up
you
with that.
for it is another thing. It's not the stereotypical wife coming to the husband that I think it used to be like that for some people and maybe still today. But I think that's a poor setup personally. I think it's something that should be discussed together and figure out, okay, what's a system that works for both of us?
Yeah.
I think coming to your spouse hat in hand and going, could I please have $10 to spend on this?
Yeah,
it just sounds like a really bad idea.
Yeah, and it's demeaning to the other person, whether they're financially contributing or not. For us, we just, this is one of the principles that we learned early on, even while we're engaged, is we're both going to give 100%.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're taking care of the household, you're giving 100% to that. If I'm working on the bringing in income, I'm working 100% on that. But one doesn't have more value.
Yeah.
Just because one's associated with money doesn't mean that therefore that has more value in our relationship.
Right.
We value both the family structure that you were able to give a lot of time to the kids, and we were able to set that up by me working and being on the road. So
For sure.
So yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. The other thing I would say is making sure not to look at budgeting as a curse, but figuring out how to use your finances to be a gift to your family instead of something that you're constantly feeling like is draining your relationship, or maybe constant tension between you and your spouse. Figure out how you could use that to benefit, to be a blessing. And we found that budgeting, not for everybody. I realize there are some people we know that still don't budget and they're in a really healthy place. But we found that that's a great way to not allow the money to control you, but for you to say, hey, you're going here, money.
Yeah, I like that.
So go out, make a plan together.
Talk about it.
This is Danny Ray
And Kimberly,
with We Do
do whatever it takes.